electric vehicles. And EVs, as you know, are growing in popularity now. Is that popularity growing because of being forced or because of incentives? We're going to take a look at a couple different reasons why EVs are becoming more popular. First of all, there are um, incentives and bonuses and rebates being put into the marketplace for people to buy EVs. Here's one example where in Colorado, they have a $5,000 tax credit in addition to, for new vehicles, a $7,500 tax credit from the federal government. So here's an example where buyers can get, 12,000 plus for electric vehicles. And the manufacturers on top of that are putting more incentives on electric vehicles. The state's incentive jumps from 2,000 to 5,000 for any electric vehicle under 80,000, and that's most of them. Some of the other incentives that have been announced were for vehicles 40 or 50,000, which almost don't exist. Um, Further encourage a shift away from fossil fuels. The same law includes an additional 2,500 credit for electric cars under 35,000, but that doesn't kick in until next year. So in theory, you could take 5,000 plus 2,500 plus 7,500 for the government. That's 15,000 if you can find one that's under 35 grand. That's almost half the price of the car, right? If I'm doing the math correctly. So this is a very serious incentive to try to get people to switch over. Is it going to be enough? Would it convince you to get one? I don't know. According to the government, it'll lead to more purchases of smaller electric vehicles. The federal 7,500 rebate is still in play. In August, used all those rebates and discounts add up to a staggering figure, to 26,500. It's unlikely that anyone could claim the only in a lower, but in theory, it's possible. Now, what about, that's the carrot. What about the stick? Well, on the stick side, in Delaware, the governor is requiring that any new vehicle or any new home that's built has an EV charging plug. Now, we've talked about this before. Even if you're not interested in electric vehicles right now, we would recommend putting an EV plug in your house. If you do it, as we mentioned before, in a way that is not rushed, not like you bought one, you have to put it in right away, you can actually do it pretty cheap. The wire that you would need, the conductors to go from your breaker box, your power input system into your garage, usually is only about 10 feet long, depending on where your breaker box is. The wire is only going to cost you maybe $50 or $100. The extra double breaker, because you need 240, one on each side of the panel, might cost you, 50 to $100 again. And if you have an electrician who's already on site doing something else or in your area, it may be an hour's worth of labor. So altogether, you could probably have the install for maybe $350, right? And that would be a good investment because at some point you're going to need it, or the next person who owns your house will need it. And then putting in the plug, depending on what kind of plug you have, is pretty inexpensive. Now, what about used electric vehicles? Looking to buy used EV? Here's what you should know. There are not only incentives, but there are some specific used car purchase considerations that are different on electric vehicle. According to ABC, 3 things to consider before buying used. One is battery health. You notice that's the first one, right? You want to do a pre-purchase inspection, and it may cost you $100, a couple $100. The problem is an electric vehicle battery is the most expensive part of the car. It's equivalent to the engine on a gasoline car, the motor. And if that battery is worn out, you may find that battery replacement can cost from 5,000 to 15,000. And in fact, that's probably a low ball. You're probably going to find that a battery is going to be between 15 and 25,000. So if that battery is not working properly, operating properly, the whole vehicle is worthless because that's the whole amount of the vehicle. Now, the other difference is with a gasoline vehicle, many times you can evaluate the health of the vehicle based on the mileage. Well, electric vehicles, battery degradation is less of a factor of mileage and more of how it was used. Was it fast charge, rapid charge? Was it discharged in a high heat condition? Was it subjected to severe cold? Was there a lot of highway driving? Because unlike gasoline vehicles, highway driving burns out batteries more than city driving, right? So you're going to find that you want to get that battery evaluated. Very, very important. If you have a vehicle that even had a minor collision, even if it was repaired, sometimes that impact, that shock, that jostling can break the very, very small electrical connections inside the battery, and it can degrade it. You also want to find out, are there warranties on the vehicle? Most manufacturers warranty EV batteries 8 to 10 years, 80,000 to 150,000 miles. And you might think that's a long time, but if it's an 8-year warranty and it's 100,000 miles, if the vehicle already has 50,000 miles, you could be out of warranty in just a couple years. If you drive 20 or 25,000 miles a year, you could be out of warranty that fast. And unlike a gasoline vehicle, which have many, many component parts that can fail once in a while, 200, 300, 500, 800, battery on electric vehicles, all or nothing. The other components of the vehicle are less likely to break. The battery is the thing. So a warranty can expire faster than you think, even the time. You know, an 8-year-old vehicle, think about it, right now is what, 2014, right? That's an 8-year-old vehicle, if I'm doing the math correctly. Or no, that's not true. It's 2014 will get you an 8-year-old vehicle. Here's the thing. A lot of vehicles that were sold in 2019 and 2020, electric vehicles or hybrids, they're going to hit 80,000 to 100,000 miles faster than they'll hit the time, right? And the warranties will kick that in. What about incentives on a used electric vehicle? Well, there may not be as many incentives. Certain used vehicles can qualify for up to $4,000. And this is something where a lot of people overlook it, and they would never think to file that warranty for an electric vehicle or file that rebate for an electric vehicle because you wouldn't know it existed. Reason we're recommending look at used or new EVs right now is because those tax incentives and the battery pack are covered by the full warranty. But you may be able to save some money if the new ones are expensive. Here's almost a no-brainer for buying a new electric vehicle if you're into this model. We've seen deals on the Jeep Wrangler 4xe. It says 4EX, but it's 4xe. As much as 14,000 incentives and 7,500 from the federal government. That's 20+% off a new car. That's worth looking at. So if you're looking at an SUV, Jeep Wrangler may not have been your top choice, but it may be worth taking a look. Now, what about on the manufacturing side? Well, Ford had some news this week that talked about their legal victory in court. Here's what happened. A year or two ago, Ford said, if you want to be a Ford dealer and sell electric vehicles, you have to go through what they call a certification process to become a Ford electric vehicle dealer. It was originally launched for the Ford Mustang E, which is their electric vehicle version of the Mustang. And retail to go through a certificate. In fact, it almost made it that you had to qualify as a new dealer for that model. And if you didn't go through the certification process, you wouldn't get the Mustang E, and any other future electric vehicles. Well, think about it. If you're a dealer and you're already a licensed franchise dealer, and the manufacturer is telling you, well, you're not going to be a dealer anymore unless you do this, it's almost like they're changing the deal midstream. They're changing the contract, the franchise agreement midstream. But the court said that certification program does not violate franchise law, right? The program requires dealers to invest $1 million and adhere to rigorous sales standards. They have to sell future EVs, and they have to sell them no haggle. You have to do delivery to customers and do remote vehicle transactions. 6 dealers argued that the Ford altered their franchise agreement by replacing a certification program with new requirements. The court said the implementation of the Model E program is not a change in the franchise agreement. Controversial, where the agreement about the manufacturing. Really good article. There's actually a white paper from an engineering company that talked about the manufacturing process. This is geared towards companies who are in the business of providing components. Look, when Ford builds an electric vehicle, or any manufacturer, they don't build all the parts in the Ford factory. They have contractors and suppliers that build things like the batteries and the engine and the motors and all the other parts. And this is geared towards companies who support and supply manufacturers. And they talk about a few things. Powertrain testing. If you are an industry provider, you have to do testing. What are the challenges? New and legacy OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, and suppliers are trying to determine the optimal investment to get product to the market. So suppliers are now also having to switch over to electric vehicles, and they don't know, should I put $10 million to building a new factory? But then again, who knows if EVs will take off and what parts are going to be needed. New players are trying to obtain capabilities that seem straightforward, but they're not straightforward. These capabilities involve substantial outlays for even basic systems and paying for different knowledge to get meaningful value. What that means is, if you're a supplier trying to get into the market for EVs, it's a big crapshoot. It's a big risk, because you have to build a plant that's going to construct supplies that it's not known what the market's going to be yet. Legacy players, that means existing suppliers, often must attempt to find space to convert a large operation that isn't bigger but different. Constraints. While it is similar, electrification requires a distinctive tool set and expertise. That means that the engineers are different. What are the risks? Safety. People could get hurt if proper engineering protocols are not created, or old ones are no longer valid. What that means is safety in manufacturing and safety in the product isn't the same for electric vehicles versus gasoline vehicles. When you produce an electric vehicle, you have things like radiation, noise, component sizes, and we'll talk about that with some of those things that people may be overlooking. Industry players will be too late to market if the development investment isn't well considered and phased properly. Money spent on equipment that cannot be used is wasted. So if you're a factory and you build a brand new factory that builds a certain kind of battery, and in 3 years nobody wants that battery, that all that money is wasted. And then warranty. So if you're a component manufacturer, you may have some liability to the factory that builds the cars if there's a lot of warranty claims that have to do with your part. And the final product may have significantly warranty issues if decisions are made based on data that isn't gathered properly. Well, what data is there? There's not a lot of vehicles out there at this time. The biggest risk is unfamiliarity. Nobody really knows yet what the EV market's going to be, not even the manufacturers. So let's talk about some of the risks. Without proper environmental testing and validation, those who do not show equivalent, capable, all-weather operational will risk losing market share. Not only losing market share, but the first batch of vehicles may not be that well. Um, here's talk about noise. Here's something that's overlooked. Noise vibration um, is the measure of how loud something is or how much it vibrates. Gasoline vehicles, by definition, are designed to withstand vibration. The engine vibrates. It's an internal combustion engine. That means inside the engine there is combustion, there's explosions, there's burning of fuel that creates vibration. Electric vehicles are very smooth. Go drive one. You'd be amazed how smooth and silky quiet it is. But that creates some problems. If you're building a vehicle that doesn't account for all the vibrations from the engine, it still has vibrations from the road, from maybe impacts, from going over bumps. And if that battery pack or the other very sensitive electronic components are not set up to handle that vibration, um, it could be a problem. In addition, you're going to have diagnostic problems. Now, when a gasoline vehicle has something wrong with it, think about the person who brings it into the repair shop. They are going to say, "Here's the noise it makes," and they maybe even try to imitate the noise. Electric vehicles don't make any noise, so you're not going to be able to diagnose it by the noise. It's going to take one tool out of your toolbox to diagnose the problem. So let us know in the comments below what you think about the transition to electric vehicles. Is it something you're looking forward to? Is it something that you think is being rushed? Is it something you wish there were more vehicles? And this will be a subject we talk about quite a bit on our channel. And then we'll see.